Good morning, Team Aries. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to win the Mission to Mars 2 competition. As always, should you or any member of your force be killed, or worse, disqualified, the TA will disavow any knowledge of your actions. Learn the box quickly, team. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Completing the Mission to Mars 2 competition consists of 5 tasks: clearing 3 boulders, collecting 8 supply crates, landing 4 spacecrafts in the safe zone on the mountain ridge, rescuing astronauts and rovers from the mountain ridge, and egressing from the landslide zone. 4 teams compete against each other to get the maximum number of points per mission. House of Quality was created to assess customer needs and relate them to the engineering requirements. Important engineering requirements that stood out to us were that the machine had to be within the dimension limit of a 12 by 24 by 18 inch box, and keeping the number of components to a minimum. The House of Quality led to the creation of the specification sheet. Our specification sheet, we decided that it was necessary to meet the guidelines the rules laid out, such as being within the boxable configuration, keeping the overall cost below $100, and making the setup time within 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Though the robot should be built to be successful in the competition, it isn't a requirement to complete all the tasks given to us. It is more important to outscore your opponents, which became our overall goal for this competition. To achieve this, we had to complete as many of the competition tasks as possible, along with performing consistently and avoiding disqualification. We created a morph chart based on the function tree to list various solutions on how to solve the given tasks of the competition. The final solutions used by Team Aries were an actuator system to reach the mountain ridge, a limit switch to detect the beacons, a timer with a motor and string to egress from the landslide zone, a trapdoor mechanism to release the spacecrafts, an F-shaped arm to retrieve the astronauts and rovers, and a pivot arm to clear boulders and collect supply crates.
In the beginning stages of the design process, each team member had a similar idea of the direction we wanted to go for the final design, which led to 4 individual designs: Intrepid, Emerald, MP1, and Underdog. Intrepid was the cleanest and simplest design, but lacks a separate boulder clearing subsystem. Instead, the arms are angled correctly where the side boulders are cleared with the supply crate arms. Emerald has a separate set of drawer slides that would push the boulders into the landslide zone once the entire robot is triggered with one actuator. MP1, the most different of the 4, utilized a second separate actuator to push out the boulders out of the home zone. And Underdog's boulder clearing subsystem consists of a second set of drawer slides with 2 mouse traps that are held stationary by a solenoid, which would retract and launch the boulders out of the home zone. We merged each of the key features into the Intrepid design and dubbed it Intrepid 2.0. We then compared our final design with each of the individual ones in the design matrix to verify that it was the best overall design to move forward with. Going into qualifications, we had high expectations as we were able to create a spacecraft deployment system, an astronaut and rover retrieval arm, and a supply crate collecting system. Unfortunately, those expectations were met with disappointment. Intrepid DQ'd 2 of 3 matches. The first match it didn't trigger, while in the second match the egress motor ran longer than 45 seconds. The third match, we unplugged the motor and got minimal points by clearing a boulder and collecting 3 supply crates. Due to this poor showing in qualifiers, we were initially seeded 24th out of 26 teams. As a group, though, we weren't discouraged because we knew what Intrepid was capable of once we could get it to work consistently. A large part of the qualifying performance was due to improper coding. That issue was remedied immediately afterwards as we sought out help and rewrote the entire code from scratch to make it modular so that it would be easier to read and troubleshoot. Mechanically, the only issue was that the machine wasn't clearly boxable because the limit switch had cardboard taped to it as an extension, and it was getting pressed in during the boxing process. This issue was fixed by making a brand new mount for the switch that allowed it to be brought forward more, so the switch didn't need to have an extension.
Intrepid 2.0's aggressive color scheme was inspired by the team's name of Aries. With Aries being the god of war, it was decided that the machine should reflect a bold and powerful appearance, while being sleek and orderly such that it can be easily operated. The final design consisted of 3 different subsystems: one to collect supply crates and clear boulders, another to rescue astronauts and rovers, and a third to deposit spacecrafts into the safe zone. The Mountain Ridge subsystem functions such that it is initially launched forward on a drawer slider track by the force provided by 2 actuators. As the subsystem is launched forward, the astronaut retrieval arm, initially held in tension, is allowed to activate once the retrieval arm lock is no longer impeding movement. Once the subsystem has reached the mountain ridge, this retrieval arm will function to rescue rovers and astronauts as the mountain ridge rotates. While this is happening, and a fixed limit switch is triggered by the beacons as they pass with the rotating mountain ridge. Once the limit switch is activated twice within a short instance of time, the solenoid, originally blocking the spacecraft, is retracted, allowing the spacecraft to be delivered into the safe landing zone. Finally, after 35 seconds of elapsed time, a motor is activated that spools a string attached to the mountain ridge subsystem, effectively egressing the machine a safe distance from the landing area. While this occurs, two supply crate arms are deployed by the initial movement of the drawer sliders and gravity. The two arms fall such that they land between the outside and middle boulders on their respective sides. A string is attached to the arms and a spool, which is attached to a motor. Once the arms hit the floor of the arena, the motor is activated for 7 seconds, which causes the string to wrap around the spool. As the arms are reeled in by the string, they first make contact with the outside boulders, clearing them from the habitable area. Next, these arms secure the supply crates, pulling them into its zone.
During the week between qualifiers and the final competition, we refined and improved Intrepid's design. Along with the issues from qualifications, we altered the angle of the supply crate arms to fall straight down so that the boulders could be cleared. We redesigned the astronaut rover retrieval arm to be more robust. We hand-lathed spools for the strings to be coiled around, and we cleaned up the wires and mechatronic components to give it a sleek, clean, aesthetic appearance. Before competition day, Intrepid was performing consistently by clearing 2 boulders, collecting 8 uncontested supply crates, landing all 4 spacecraft safely, and retrieving a minimum of 1 astronaut or rover, with at least 1 machine positioned to the right or left of us. Our main goal for the final competition was to not get disqualified, granting us eligibility to complete in further rounds. The second goal was to, at the very least, reach the 3rd round. This meant we needed to be in the top 2 of one of the first 2 rounds. We met both goals as Intrepid made it all the way to the 4th round, finishing 14th overall, based on wins and average points, as it won 2 of the 4 matches it competed in with a point average of 9.25. We also finished 13th in design review. What worked for the machine was the supply crate arms, the egress motor, and the astronaut and rover retrieval arm. The supply crate arms didn't work for half of the matches, however, due to too much slack being on the string. The spacecraft delivery system did not work at all for Intrepid. The solenoid prematurely activated for 1 match, deploying the spacecraft due to the initial triggering force. For the other 3 matches, the solenoid did not activate at all, stranding the spacecraft on the machine the entire match. Getting a more reliable solenoid is at the top of the list for improvements for the future models. Other improvements include getting a faster supply crate collection time and a smoother egress motion. Those can be implemented by reducing the slack on the string for the crate arms and creating a better spool for the egress motor. Thank you, Dr. D and Insung, for all of your help and guidance throughout this long and eventful summer. We are Team Aries.